If you hear your name whispered in the woods, don't answer it, even if it sounds like your mother, even if it is your mother, because once you speak back, knows you, and it will follow. Deep in the Appalachian Mountains, there are places not marked on any map, not because they were forgotten, but because someone made sure you'd never find them. Places where the trees lean inward, where the wind stops blowing, and where sound just disappears. Locals have a name for it. They won't say it out loud, but they'll tell you what happens when you stay too long. First the birds go quiet, then the insects, then the thoughts in your head stop sounding like your own. Some say it's the land reclaiming what doesn't belong. Others say it's something older, older than the trees, older than names, older than God. Hikers vanish out here. Campers never unzip their tents. Hunters are found without their rifles, their footprints circling the same tree for hours, barefoot. But the bodies are rarely found, and when they are, they're never all there. You think you understand fear? Try staring into a cave where your voice doesn't echo back. Try waking up to your campfire already burning. Try finding a handprint on your window from the inside. This isn't legend. This isn't some bedtime story. These are real stories, told by real people. Some of them still shaking, some of them still missing. And after tonight, you'll never walk through the woods the same way again. Because once you hear it, once you feel it watching, you'll start to understand what they meant when they said, "The mountains never let go, they only wait." The Appalachian Mountains stretch like a sleeping giant across the eastern spine of America. But not all parts of the giant are safe to touch. There are places where compasses spin, radio signals vanish, and time stutters. These mountains are old, not just in age, but in memory. Older than the roads we forced through them. Older than any church bell that ever rang here. And older than the names we gave the things we didn't understand. Over 1,500 miles of peaks, hollers, caves, and ridgelines. But some stretches feel wrong, heavy, as if something beneath the ground is listening to your footsteps, waiting for a mistake. Entire towns have vanished here, not wiped away by storms, but abandoned, with dinner plates still on tables. Chairs still pulled out, beds still made, but no signs of life, no final letters, no goodbyes. They call them ghost towns. But ghosts aren't what people fear in the Appalachian backwoods. It's what walks in daylight. It's what knows shortcuts between trees. It's what mimics the voices of your friends when they're standing right beside you. Rescue teams have a saying. We search in pairs, we speak in whispers, and if we see a trail marker we didn't leave, we turn back. They found boot prints that walk into the woods and never walk out. They've followed emergency beacons only to find the beacon, but no hiker. Just a tent torn wide open, no blood, no struggle. Just empty, zipped from the inside. Local legends never fade here. They just shift. What the Cherokee once warned about, what coal miners whispered about, what Civil War scouts described in their journals. It all leads to the same truths. That something watches these woods. It doesn't need to chase. It waits. And it always gets closer when you stop believing it's real. One area in particular has passed between lips for decades. No official name. Just a trail that rangers refuse to log. They say it's somewhere near Devil's Fork. But it moves. No two maps show the same trailhead. And no one who's followed it has ever made it out with the same face. The lucky ones get lost. The unlucky ones get found. Or what's left of them does. So if you're ever hiking out here, and you see a rock too clean to be real, no moss, no dirt, no weathering, just smooth, bare stone in the middle of the forest, don't step past it. That's the entrance. And it won't let you back out the same. Michael and Erica Langford were the kind of hikers who double-checked their gear, left backup plans, and brought two of everything. They weren't careless. They weren't new. They were the ones who knew how to survive. On April 11, 2009, they parked their car near the old ranger station at Devil's Fork Trail. They signed the registry, smiled for a selfie, texted their parents, and stepped onto the trail at 12:17 p.m. Weather, clear. Forecast, stable. Visibility, high. By all accounts, nothing unusual. They made it roughly 3 miles in before the change happened. It didn't come with a sound, or a shadow, or a sign. First, the birds went quiet. Not gradually. All at once, like someone flipped a switch. Then the wind stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Leaves froze mid-motion. Branches no longer swayed. The forest held its breath. That's when Michael sent the message. There's something crouching across the river. It's not an animal. No panic. No context. Just a line typed in broad daylight. At 3:42 p.m., Erica tried to send her location. The signal failed. The text never arrived. After that, silence. Their parents tried to call. No answer. Their phones rang then stopped. No voicemail. Until later that night. At 4:02 a.m., Michael's phone dialed home. What? No one picked up. But it left something behind. A voicemail. 92 seconds long. Nearly all of it static. Except for the middle. Was. At second 38, a voice. Faint. Garbled. Strained. Michael's voice, speaking but not to the phone. Do you see that? Wait. It's standing now. Then a sharp inhale. A muffled thud. Then nothing. Just dead air. The voicemail was analyzed. No background noise. No identifiable wildlife. Only the distortion of movement. As if something heavy passed between the phone and his mouth, without making a sound. The next morning the search began. 10 rangers. 2 canines. Clear weather. By day 3 they found the camp. Tent zipped. Untouched. 2 unopened bottles of water. Boots placed neatly near a log. But no people. No blood. No drag marks. No broken branches. What they did find was worse. Michael's compass was 200 feet from the tent. Cracked down the center. Split like something had gripped it and crushed it in one hand. There were scratches on both sides, deep, diagonal, unnatural. Not claw marks from a bear. No predator in the region leaves that kind of damage. They weren't slices. They were gouges. Erica's trail map was pinned under a rock. Torn perfectly in half. Left in plain view. Almost arranged, like it was meant to be found. The last piece was the pine tree, just off trail. Roughly 20 yards from the riverbank. A vertical set of claw-like marks 6 feet high. 4 deep trenches. Too far apart to match any known animal. Too precise to be made by accident. Too deliberate to be natural. There was no trace of a struggle. No signs of panic. No footprints leading away. Just stopped. Park officials ruled it an unresolved wilderness disappearance. The official report cited natural causes. But the rangers who searched that valley stopped taking assignments after dark. 3 of them transferred out of state within the year. That stretch of the trail remains unmarked on public maps. But those who know the woods, they say if you pass a clean rock in the middle of mossy ground, no dirt, no leaves, no prints, don't step near it. That's not part of the trail. That's the entrance. And it doesn't open twice. Leah Morgan was 27 when she inherited a cabin in the woods. Her uncle had passed suddenly, and the land went to her. No one else in the family wanted it. Too remote. Too far from cell service. Too close to the wrong kind of quiet. But for Leah, a new mother with no job and no plan, it was a gift. For rooms, a working fireplace, and peace. That's all she wanted, just somewhere the baby could rest. Somewhere without traffic, noise, or anything to fear. The cabin sat 11 miles outside Harlan County, Kentucky, surrounded by woods on all sides. The nearest neighbor? 100 acres away. The nearest sound? A creek behind the trees that never stopped moving. The first week was perfect. She chopped wood, warmed bottles by the fire, watched deer pass by the window at dusk. She wrote in her journal, "It's the kind of silence you want to bottle and keep forever." On the 8th night, that silence changed. It started as a light tap. One tap, then another, then 5 evenly spaced. She thought it was a branch, until she realized the trees didn't reach that far. She pulled back the curtain. There was a man standing outside the window, in the snow. No hat, no coat, no movement. His face was thin, his eyes too wide. His mouth was open, but not like he was yelling. Just open, like he had been caught in mid-sentence and forgot what words were. She blinked. He didn't. She locked the window, checked the baby, and sat by the crib until morning. At dawn, she walked outside. No prints, no tire tracks, no disturbed snow, nothing. Night 2, 2:13 a.m. The tapping returned. She turned on the porch light. He was back, closer now, staring through a different window. Same clothes, same blank expression, same stillness. She didn't move, neither did he. But her baby stirred, and the man turned his head, just a little, just enough. In the morning, she found her firewood stacked differently. The top log was missing, a single gray hair left in its place. She shaved her head that night. By the 3rd night, she stopped looking. She kept all the lights off. She placed her baby in a laundry basket and slept with it next to her bed. But the scratching started, inside the walls, under the floorboards. Once, under her mattress, a light scrape, too faint for tools, too steady for mice. On the 5th night, she dreamed of a man crawling on the ceiling. No skin, only eyes. She woke up to the sound of water dripping, but the faucets were off. She followed the sound to the closet. Inside, nothing. But when she turned off her flashlight, something in the dark breathed back. That morning, she found her baby monitor unplugged. On the 6th night, she placed her video camera facing the living room window. It recorded from 11 p.m. until dawn. At 3:08 a.m., the screen jumped. 4 minutes vanished. And when it resumed, the reflection of the room was wrong. There were still 2 chairs. Still the curtains. Still the cradle. But Leah wasn't visible. Someone else was. A man. Standing behind the camera. Not holding it. Watching it. She dropped the camera. Took the battery out. And didn't sleep. The next night, the baby was gone. She found the front door open. No footprints. No broken lock. Just snow drifting gently through the kitchen. She ran outside. Screamed. Cried. Then she heard laughter. Her baby was lying 20 feet from the porch, wrapped in a towel, smiling, completely unharmed. But beneath him was something worse. A ring of bones, arranged carefully. Ribs, jawbones, vertebrae, whitened by age, polished by weather, and not from any animal that walked these woods. She didn't take her clothes. She didn't pack a bag. She took her child, got in the truck, and left. Didn't stop until she hit Tennessee. When authorities checked the property 3 days later, the house was empty. But the sheriff noted 2 things. First, the crib had been moved to face the window, and inside it was the camera, recording. Second, on the inside of the glass, scratched into the frost, "You saw me first." That cabin has never been rented, never resold. The deed sits in a drawer at the courthouse, marked unclaimed. Locals say you can still see a figure there some nights. Not outside, inside, looking out, waiting for someone to make eye contact. Because once you do, he remembers. They thought it would be a simple trip. A few hours outside the city. Just 3 friends, a borrowed tent, and the last weekend of summer before school started. Boone Hollow wasn't on the map. The dirt path they followed was barely visible between the trees. It had no mile markers, no signs, but it did have a strange kind of quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful. The kind that feels like something's holding its breath. Elijah, Cole, and Marcus were 16. Smart enough to plan. Brave enough to ignore the rumors. Boone Hollow was known by one name to the locals. The place with no echo. They found a clear patch near a ring of oaks and set up camp. Started a fire. Talked. Joked. One of them even filmed a pretend ghost story on their phone, laughing into the trees. But at 1:03 a.m. the tone shifted. That's when they heard the whistle. It came from the east, past the ridge. 3 soft notes. The beginning of Amazing Grace. But drawn out. Almost too perfect. Cole whistled it back. Same notes. Same rhythm. A few seconds later, the whistle came again. But this time, it matched his exact tone. Same pitch. Same slight pause on the last note. The boys paused. Smiled nervously. Said it had to be an echo. But the woods don't echo like that. Not with breath. Not with imitation. The second whistle came from the west. Then from behind them. Then from somewhere closer, near the tent. Marcus turned and swore he saw someone in the trees. Tall. Like a person waiting in the dark. But it didn't move. Cole stood up. Grabbed the flashlight. Told the others he'd check it out. I'll be right back. Probably some hiker messing with us. That was the last thing he said. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 30. Elijah and Marcus called for him. Nothing. Then they heard it again. The whistle. But now it was different. Off-key. Like someone trying to remember the tune, but forgetting what it meant. They found his phone 30 feet from camp. Face down. Screen cracked. Still recording. They didn't pick it up right away. They stood over it, listening. Then they played it back. Soft static builds. A voice begins. Boone Hollow, 1:12 a.m. Still nothing. You guys are messing with me, I swear. Wait. Something just moved. It's tall. Thin. Looks like, wait, what? That's me. That's my voice. That's me talking. End of voice. Silence. Then breathing. Not fast. Not scared. Just steady. Then one long whistle. Held far too long. No inhale. No pause. Just a single unbroken note that dropped off like it was pulled away. The file ended at 1:21 a.m. Rangers were dispatched. They combed the woods for 9 days. Dogs lost the trail less than a mile in. The temperature dropped unexpectedly. Their compass readings, off by 10 degrees in every direction. Cole was never found. No clothing. No belongings. No remains. The fire pit was intact. The tent untouched. Only the phone and the whistle remained. Some residents believe Boone Hollow is a boundary, not a haunted place. A doorway. Something that mimics sound. Lures with memory. Waits for someone to answer, then takes them. Cole's parents never held a funeral. They still visit the ridge each year in July. Same date. Same hour. They build a fire. Set a chair by the edge. And wait. Sometimes it stays quiet. Other years, they hear whistling. Always the same song. Never from the same direction. They don't speak during it. They don't follow the sound. They just sit and hope. That one day their son is the one whistling back. The further we looked into the reports, the harder it became to get anyone to talk. We knocked on 24 doors across 6 Appalachian counties. Only 7 people spoke to us. Only 2 allowed recording. None wanted their names on record. One man said this: "You start talking about the woods start listening." Then he closed the blinds and unplugged his phone. What they told us didn't sound like folklore. It didn't sound like campfire tales. It sounded like warnings. Practiced, passed down like recipes, except meant to keep you alive. An older woman, late 70s, told us she never hung mirrors in her house. When we asked why, she said, "Because sometimes they don't show what's real, and sometimes they show what's waiting." She said her brother disappeared in 1952. He was 9. They found his toy boat stuck in a creek. No body. But 3 weeks later, her father found footprints. Small, bare, circling the house. Over and over again. She said they were still warm. A local postal worker remembered delivering a letter in 1987. No name, just an address. Inside was a Polaroid photo, blurry, dark, with a figure crouched behind a tree. He said he didn't think much of it until he heard the address had burned down. The same day the letter arrived, another man, a retired park warden, showed us his old notebook. Pages filled with times and coordinates. We asked what the numbers meant. He said they were dates and locations where something was heard but never seen. He never called it a creature. He never used the word "it." He just said, "Sometimes the trees stop being trees." In the margins were drawings. Not animals, not people, just shapes. Long-limbed, wrong-jointed, no eyes. In 2012, a group of spelunkers exploring a collapsed rock shelf near Black River Gap found a hidden entrance beneath the limestone. It led to a shallow cavern, only accessible by crawling on hands and knees. Inside they found shoes, hundreds of them, lined up in patterns, all facing the same direction. Some adult-sized, some small enough to belong to toddlers. None rotted, no signs of wear, no bugs, no smell. The cave entrance was sealed 3 days later. Not by the state, not by officials, by someone. No one knows who. Months later, one of the explorers received a package in the mail. No postage, no return address. Inside was a single shoe, one they'd seen in the cave. Tucked inside the shoe was a folded slip of paper. It said, "They're not lost, just not walking anymore." We obtained a ranger incident log from 1996 that had been removed from public archives. Its last entry read, "Saw fire light across ridge. Approached. Fire vanished. Heard breathing but wind still. Left area. Don't assign night watches here again." The ranger who wrote it left the force within the month. One of the most disturbing stories came from a family who used to own a property near a valley no longer on the maps. They recalled hearing footsteps on the roof at night. Not in the attic. On the roof. Pacing. Slow. Deliberate. It only happened during rain. Always rain. And it never made a sound coming up or going down. Their father, a military veteran, went outside one night with a rifle and never returned. They found the rifle the next morning, leaning against the back door. Bone dry. His boots were standing at the edge of the field. Side by side. Facing the house. No footprints around them. The most common pattern we found? Always shoes. Always alone. In abandoned cabins, in dry riverbeds hanging from trees. Sometimes arranged in circles. Sometimes in lines. Never random. Never explained. One anonymous tip led us to an old ranger's outpost on a logging road no longer used. The place had been abandoned for decades, but someone had left a message on the wall, etched into the wood with a knife. One sentence. It doesn't chase you. It just waits for the last step. We asked a folklorist in North Carolina why so many stories link back to shoes. He said something that still keeps us awake. If it takes your feet, you never walk away. If it takes your shoes, it knows you're coming back. And maybe that's what these stories are. Not legends, not monsters, just records of things we're not allowed to remember, of people who stepped too far off the trail, people who heard something that sounded too familiar, who answered when they shouldn't have, who saw something out of place and looked too long. They're not missing. They were marked. The mountains never lost them. They just haven't finished with them yet. Some believe the forest remembers, not in stories, not in words, but in silence, in stillness, in the way a trail looks exactly the same until it doesn't. You step into the woods and it watches, not with eyes, with weight, with air that thickens behind your back, with the strange feeling that if you turned around too quickly, something might be standing there. Most people ignore it. They keep walking. They don't notice the birds stopped singing. They don't ask why the wind keeps shifting. They don't wonder why the path feels longer than before. But the forest notices them. And once it marks you, it waits. We spoke to families, mothers, brothers, children. They all said the same thing in different ways. He was doing fine until he came back from that hike. She just started sitting by the window, staring at the tree lean. He kept hearing something call his name, but it wasn't my voice. Some never slept again. Some couldn't stop drawing the same symbols. Some couldn't stay indoors. Others refused to go near a tree, even in photographs. One mother said her daughter had been missing for 8 months. Then she heard her laugh outside the house just before sunrise. The same laugh, same tone, same pause in the middle. She opened the door. No one was there. Just a pair of shoes. On the porch. What? The size her daughter wore. Still warm. Another man told us he heard whistling in his sleep. Every night. 3 notes. Same ones his father used to whistle. Only his father died when he was 5. He hadn't heard that melody in over 20 years. People report seeing things that aren't there, but only in reflections, only in the moment after they look away. They say shadows move in ways shadows shouldn't, and sometimes when you're alone, you're not. A wildlife camera placed in Shenandoah for 3 months recorded 237 hours of motion. Only 19 of those had images. The rest? Motion with no form. Branches moving. Leaves pressed down, breath on the lens, but no shape. We analyzed footage from an old cabin security system, installed by a couple who never returned from their weekend trip. In the final video file, time froze. The clock kept ticking, but nothing moved. Not the fire, not the smoke, not the shadows. Everything in the room was still, except the window. The curtain swayed. Not in a breeze, but like something had just passed behind it. There are photographs with faces that no one remembers. Family albums with a child added, or removed. Old home videos with background movement, eyes in the woods. Heads turning that weren't there the first time the video played. Maybe these are tricks, or maybe they're messages. Some believe the woods mark you. That when you walk in, a part of you doesn't leave. It waits, sleeps, until something calls it back. Maybe it's not that people go missing. Maybe they were never meant to be here in the first place. Just passing through, just borrowed. And the forest is simply collecting what's owed. So if you've ever had that dream, the one where you're walking alone and can't remember why, if you've ever heard a voice say your name from just behind the trees, but you're sure no one was with you, don't answer. If your trail goes quiet, if the birds stop, the path feels wrong, don't speak, don't run, don't look back, because once it knows you heard it, It never forgets, and neither will you. If you're still here, that means you listened. That means something in these stories reached you. Maybe it was the missing hikers. Maybe the voice that matched your own. Maybe the sound of whistling in a place where nothing should sing. Maybe you heard something just now, outside your window, in the hallway, a floorboard, a shift in the air. Most people finish videos like this and move on. They forget. They scroll. They pretend none of it matters. But the forest never forgets. And if you felt something during this, if your eyes drifted to that dark corner behind you, if your breath caught for no reason at all, then maybe you were meant to hear it. Like this video. If your skin tensed up when the trail went quiet, if something felt close, but never arrived, if the silence in your room just got heavier. Comment if you've ever heard a voice you couldn't explain. If you've ever seen a path that looked wrong. If you've ever woken up, knowing something was watching you. We read every story, and some of them come true again. Subscribe if you think this was the end. Because what we showed you tonight, that was the surface, a whisper. Next week, we'll show you what a park ranger found sealed behind a rock wall, 100 feet underground. The oxygen was gone, but something else was still breathing. So before you go, check your locks, turn on the lights, close the blinds, and ask yourself, when the forest remembers your name, will you remember the rules? Don't answer it. Don't look back. Don't leave the path. And if you feel the air change, too late. The mountains never forget, and neither should you.